So good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. This is our Lunchbox session. We have a wonderful guest with us today, Mr. Rocco Cozza, his topic today is kindness in business. Let's hear a little bit about what Rocco has done over the course of his lifespan. Rocco is a sought-after business and sports entertainment lawyer and the founder of the the Cozza Law Group, and he has been practicing law since 2003. During this time, he has worked with a multitude of businesses, entrepreneurs, athletes, entertainers, and influencers, helping them solve the business and legal challenges that they face. As counsel, Rocco has advised businesses and business owners on appropriate entity formation, contract drafting, commercial transactions, mergers and acquisitions, employment matters, HR policy, intellectual property matters, as well as provided general business consulting services for various industries. Rocco earned his JD from Duquesne University School of Law, where he was a recent decisions editor for the Duquesne Law Review. He received an MBA in Applied Business from Waynesburg University and his undergraduate degree in psychology from Washington and Jefferson College. He also has is a licensed PA title agent and co-founder of 24/7 Settlement Services, LLC. In addition to practicing law, Rocco frequently speaks at conferences on the topics of leadership, motivation, and the art of kindness in business, which we will hear today. In January 2019, he stepped onto a TEDx stage to share his talk called Radical Kindness, Why the Unbillable Hour Matters Most in Business. Rocco has sat on various nonprofit boards and most recently was a member of the board of directors of Elphas House, Inc., a behavioral rehabilitation center located in Pittsburgh, PA. He spends his time with his wife, Laura, and his three wonderful children, Gabe, Ellie, and Melina. Rocco, I would like to turn this over to you. Thank you for being here, and we're ready to hear your presentation today.
Awesome. Well, it's my pleasure, and thank you again for having me. I hope everybody can hear me okay. And yes, this is not a joke. I am a lawyer, and I will be talking about kindness. So that is something that people, when they hear about this talk, they think it's going to be a joke, and I tend to get people to come to the talk just because they can't believe a lawyer is actually going to be speaking about kindness. So a little bit more about my background. So, I've been practicing law for 20 years. When I was in college, and this is kind of how the whole kindness thing came about, starting in college, I was a psychology major, and I had, in my senior year, I had a decision to make. I actually applied to go be a child psychologist. I loved working with kids. I just had this passion for working with kids. There was something in my heart that told me that's what I wanted to do. And then I ended up applying to grad school, got waitlisted, decided that was fate telling me to be a lawyer. So I ended up going to law school and starting to practice law. And then my career journey kind of took me back full circle, and actually now working with kids through a foundation we started, which I'll talk about in a moment. But the whole kindness thing. So I was raised in an Italian family. My grandmother was a huge inspiration, in my life, and she always taught me just to be kind to everyone. That was kind of the Italian way. Even when I was a kid, there was a girl in my neighborhood that I was 7 or 8 years old, and she used to beat up on me all the time, and I wouldn't do anything to her. I would just take it because my grandmother always told me to be kind to everyone. I didn't know I was allowed to fight back or do certain things. So it was kind of this thing that was ingrained in me as a kid. And then, I moved into corporate America after working in big law out of law school, and I saw how business operated, and I realized that there's a huge problem. Like, people are cutthroat. They're vindictive towards one another. This was in corporate America, and the art of kindness wasn't used. And I saw this happen throughout. I was with this company for 14 years, and the way I operated was different than all the other executives. And I was the only executive to last through 8 C-level management changes. So when I came on board and I joined that company in 2004, they changed, and I was in the C-level because I was general counsel of this company. They changed the executives 8 times. I was the only one that lasted through those 8 changes. And I believe it has to do with the way I treated people, the way I operated, the way I was kind to everyone. I was empathetic with people. And so I started to see this problem in business. Like, okay, this is something that needs to be spoken about. And then I left corporate America, and it was the first quarter of 2018. And I started speaking. I was speaking to kids. I was going to high schools and middle schools. And one particular talk, I think it was at Keystone Oaks Middle School. It was about entrepreneurship. And kids were asking questions. A really, really engaged group. They were, I think it was like 8th and 9th graders or 7th and 8th graders. They were asking about business, super engaged. And at the end of the talk, I opened up the questions, and one kid, asked, hey, what if you had to say one thing, like what is the most important thing in your mind in business? And without hesitation, I said kindness. And it was like deer in the headlights. Like every kid in that room looked at me like I was crazy, or they've never heard that before. So to me, it was kind of like, wait a minute, there's a problem here. Like, how are these kids? And these are kids that are 12, 13 years old. They don't think that kindness is important. They weren't being taught it. It wasn't being talked about. And I remember coming home, and I had this discussion with my wife, like, this is a problem. Because I have 3 kids. So I'm thinking, is this something that's, a problem just with kids? And then it was probably 6 months later, another friend of mine, a fellow lawyer, she asked me to speak at this women's leader in the law seminar. And it was all these women lawyers from the Allegheny County Bar Association. It was like a workshop. We were talking, doing different events with them or different activities. And at the end of the seminar that day, I was talking to a few of them. And I was telling them about, how I did this talk to these kids about kindness. And the one woman, which kind of sat with me funny, she said, she got rated poorly. She was a phenomenal lawyer. Like, I went to law school with her, super smart, really intelligent, sharp lawyer. She got rated poorly on her performance review at her firm because she's too nice. That's what they said. And I just kind of said, okay, this is a problem. That's when I started developing this talk on kindness and really started to understand there is actual research being done on the topic of kindness and how it works in business and how it can actually drive companies to a bigger bottom line, to more creativity, more productivity, more innovation. So I started really kind of doing the research. I probably spent, this was in 2018, I probably spent 6 months like actually researching the topic. And I applied to do a TED Talk. And I actually got accepted at 3 different locations to do a TED Talk on this topic. I ended up doing one in Canada, and the topic was called the Unbillable Hour. And it really was about the importance of kindness in business. And I phrased it in a way how I've always operated. I believe in what I call the unbillable hour. As lawyers, we bill time, so we're known for the billable hour. I look at what's more important is the unbillable hour, the time we're giving to people that we're not charging for. We don't have any expectation of anything in return. It's just being willing to help others. And I started thinking through my career in how I got into the whole sports and entertainment law side of things, because Pittsburgh, we're not really, now we're more known for the entertainment industry, but we haven't always been. And so I started getting into that industry through a meeting I took with a gentleman that I was introduced to from a colleague of mine that I went and met with during a blizzard. I drove downtown through a blizzard. I think it was in 2018 with a big snowstorm. Went downtown, met with this individual, and we hit it off. I spent 3 hours with this guy at the hotel just chatting, and he ended up introducing me to a lot of former athletes he's worked with. So that's kind of how it started, my whole sports entertainment career, by just that act of kindness. I had no idea what to expect. This colleague of mine, she said, hey, I know this guy. I think you guys would hit it off. I think you should meet. I don't know if anything will come of it, but you guys kind of seem to have the same mindset. Would you be willing to meet with him? Most people that I know, most lawyers would not do that. They're looking at their time, what it's worth. I'm not going to do that. I spent 3 hours with the guy, and it's turned into probably 100 clients from just doing that. So when I talk about kindness, like that's a big piece of it, being willing to give people your time without any expectation of return. Because in the end, it tends to return and it tends to pay dividends. And you can look at that in any business. And I'm assuming a lot of you here are in business or business owners, and you may have these instances in your career where this has happened. I literally went back through my history and my career, and every big moment, every big shift in my career as a lawyer over the past 20 years, I can trace to a single act of kindness, to time I gave someone, to taking a meeting with someone that I had no idea what was going to come of it, or having no expectations, and just being willing to help people. That has really transformed my career and helped me actually grow this firm from me as a solo lawyer 3 years ago to now there's 9 of us here, and we're growing exponentially. And it's all truly wrapped around my philosophy of kindness. That's how we operate as a law firm. So when you look at, when we talk about businesses and some of the research out there, a lot of people, a lot of managers in organizations and executives fear kindness because they think it makes them look weak. But that is the data shows it is the biggest misconception there is when it comes to kindness. When they took it, there was, probably hundreds of studies done on this from large universities. And one of the things they found most is when a leader of an organization exhibits kindness, compassion, and empathy towards their employees, those companies tend to be more creative and innovative because the fear of consequences are removed. And what I mean by that is when people have a leader that they fear, that is kind of hard-nosed, iron-fisted, that typical, you think the boss, right? They have this fear of consequence. So they do just enough to get by. They do what they're supposed to do. They have a job, they come in, they see, these are my tasks I'm supposed to do. This is what I do. They don't really go out, cut outside the lines because there's this fear of consequence, right? My boss is not a kind human being. As long as I do what I'm told, I stay in line, I'm going to be successful, I'm going to make money, I'm going to be okay. Flip that, you have the boss that's kind, empathetic, and compassionate. Those people now tend to cut outside the lines. They try different things. They make more innovative decisions. They make more creative decisions. And it tends to lead to more profitable companies because now they're innovating, because they're not afraid of the consequences. They have a boss or a leader or an executive that's encouraging them to take chances through their kindness and empathy. And that study has been done across the board through many different types of industries, large and small organizations. And it's a stat that works, that's out there, and it's an absolute thing you have to understand in business. If you truly want to grow your company and you want to encourage innovation or creativity, look at yourself as a leader and ask yourself, are you exhibiting these traits? Are you acting kindly towards others? Are you acting compassionate? Are you empathetic? And the other thing that these studies have shown, that a lot of managers and executives, they were confusing kindness with niceness. And those are really two different things. Like, kindness is the way you treat people, right? It's the way I can have conviction, I can be stern, I can take a hard position on something, but I still treat everyone with dignity and respect. Niceness is deemed in these studies as being a pushover. So these managers were equating this, well, if I'm kind, that means I'm nice, I'm a pushover, people are going to walk all over me. And once these studies got into this more and helped these managers understand the difference, and they shifted, those companies' profitability increased. I mean, it's amazing when you just change the way a management team operates or a level of executives operate in a more kind and empathetic manner, how much profitability will increase in a company. When I did this research, I mean, I knew there was a problem because I had, when you have a group of 100 kids look at you like you're crazy when you say kindness is the most important thing in business. Like, I knew this was a problem when I talked to the lawyer, and that I kept thinking this was a problem. But when I actually spent the time researching this and seeing how much of an issue it is out there, that's why I became really passionate about spreading this message. And I try and live it every day. With my firm, I look at, as a leader, it's my job to encourage my employees, to motivate them, and to inspire them. We are creating a culture here. The culture I'm creating around kindness is, I understand as an organization, as we grow, we're 9 employees now, 5 years from now, I hope to be 100 employees. I know that people will leave the organization, but I want people to leave out of necessity, not out of choice. I want to create an environment of kindness, compassion, empathy throughout the ranks, where the only reason people leave is because it's an opportunity they can't pass up. They're moving. Something tragic happened. I don't ever want a person to leave this organization because they want to. And I think if leaders exhibit those types of traits and behaviors, you will get the best from your employees. I know that the people I have, I couldn't ask for a better team of people to work with. And I think it's because they all understand my philosophy and they've adopted it. And I think kindness has this contagious effect. And there was actually a study in, I think it was out of Stanford University, where they took a group of people and they made them watch other people either acting kindly or not in a kind manner. And throughout the study, the people that observed the kind acts of behavior actually exhibited 3 times more kind behavior to others than what they would have otherwise. So it has this contagious effect. And I think people need to understand this, especially as leaders. And when you're, own a company or managing a group of people, they're going to do what you do, not what you say. They say that about kids, right? Like I have 3 kids, my son's 21, I have a 13-year-old and a 10-year-old daughter. I can tell them till I'm blue in the face to do something. They're going to exhibit my behavior. And I realized that when my son was 14 years old, there was something that was going on, and he was out with friends, and I was joking with him. He was with a group of girls, and I was joking with him, and I said, as he was like getting in the car with him, I said, "Oh, did you open the door for them?" Like jokingly, and he says, "Of course I did. That's what a man does." And I never told him that. Like I never had that discussion with him that this is the way you treat people. But he just watched and observed me. In that instance, and that was what, 7, 8 years ago. Like that's when I knew that these things matter. As both a parent and a leader, the things I do, people are going to observe, watch, and replicate. These studies on kindness, that's what they show, that people are more inclined to act kindly when their leaders are kind. Think about organizations you've been in. I'm sure you've all had a bad boss at one point in time, or someone that, just wasn't kind. How did that make you feel? How did that make you act? Were you more inclined to act kindly towards that person, or are you more inclined to just stay under the radar and do what you had to do to just get out for the day? And that's the problem. Like these companies, and I think we're starting to see a shift in society. I think we're starting to see a shift in corporate America, where you have people that now are starting to understand this power, because there's been so many studies done over the past 20 years. And I think now these companies, you're seeing they have this corporate social responsibility. They're looking at, ESG and corporate governance and providing shareholder and stakeholder value through social responsibility. But they're also understanding that part of that is how they operate within the organization to one another, with the employees, with their clients. And it's so important that as leaders and as executives and managers, you exhibit the behaviors you expect from your people. Like one thing I always say in this firm, I would never expect someone to do something I'm not willing to do. I would never expect someone on my team to take out the trash if I'm not willing to take out the trash. And it's really, these are the behaviors we have to exhibit as leaders if you want to grow a thriving organization. I look at, and I hate to toot our own horn, but I think we've done something very special as a law firm. We've redefined the way we practice law. We're trying to change the industry. We're trying to give lawyers a better perception of lawyers. And I think it's worked because we grew, most law firms typically grow on average 7 to 10% a year revenue wise. For the past 3 years, we've grown over 50% year over year. And it's because, and we ask our clients why they like working with us. And they say, "You're just good human beings. You treat us well, you make us feel important, you don't talk down to us." And these are simple behaviors, right? These are things we're taught as kids, like treat people with kindness and respect. Don't think you're better than anybody, like be kind. And so many businesses don't do that. And I have, our firm has probably 400 to 500 clients. And I look at the most successful businesses. If I took these companies that we work with, if I took the top 25 of these clients that are the best run organizations, I can guarantee you all 25 of those leaders are some of the most kindest human beings I've ever met. They care about their employees. They care about their clients. It's not about a transaction. It's not about a dollar amount. It's about how they treat other people. And by doing that, they've grown their businesses exponentially. One client in particular I'm thinking about, he grew his business from, I think he was doing $1.5 million 3 years ago to he'll cross $8 million this year. With the same amount of employees, he hasn't increased his employees. He's just increased his business because clients like working with him. They just think he's a good person. He treats them well. He's honest. He doesn't screw anybody over. He does the right thing always. He owns his mistakes. He takes accountability. And these are the things that when I talk about kindness, these are all traits you have to exhibit and you have to start implementing in your business. As far as the other side of kindness, so giving that unfettered, unrestricted time, right? That's hard for some people to do, and it's hard for people to, because even people ask me, like, why do you give people, I'll schedule a meeting with a client sometimes, and I'll be sitting in the conference room for 3 hours because I'm not going to rush somebody, and that's a hard thing for executives and leaders to grasp because we're all busy people, right? We all have a ton of stuff on our calendars. We all have a lot of things to do. We value our time, right? However, I can tell you this, that the biggest impacts I've had in business and in my career, and some of my closest friends have had in their careers, have all been those instances when they've just been willing to give their time without restriction. And I would encourage all of you to think about that. Yes, time is a precious resource, right? It is the most precious resource. We can't make any more of it. We can't buy it. So think about that from the other perspective. If someone is willing to give you that time with no expectation of anything in return, how does that make you feel as a person? It makes you feel great because you can see that person actually cares. And that's the whole point of using kindness in business, right? That unbillable hour, giving that time to someone is truly a special thing. And I look at, there's been many meetings I've had over the years where after that meeting, did this happen 2 weeks ago? I got a thank you card, a handwritten thank you card, which I love. Like I still do that. That's a huge thing to me. But this person wrote me a handwritten thank you card. I spent 2 hours with this person. We couldn't help them. We couldn't do anything. Our firm couldn't do the work that needed to be done. But I sat in here for 2 hours with that person, just gave them my time. They sent me a thank you card 2 weeks ago, and then 2 days ago, they just referred a client over. Now, there was no expectation of any of that happening, but that's the type of thing that happens when you implement kindness in business. I can't stress it enough. It is by far the most powerful tool in business. And, if I know it's hard to kind of ask questions back and forth, but I'm curious if some of the industries, could you tell me some of the industries some of the people are in on the call?
Sure. Hey, Rocco, I'm
Yeah.
a nonprofit with a little bit of a side of business of government in my former life, but nonprofit.
So let me ask you a question on the government side of things, right? Because that's always, that's the big one. So do you feel that there's a lot of kindness exhibited in government?
Rocco, I'll be honest with you. I tried to bring kindness to government for all 10 years, including my school board, 8 years as a county official. And I was kind of seen sometimes as the anomaly a little bit, but I loved working with my colleagues on both sides. I loved working with the administration at the county level. So I think kindness went a long way to bring people together, because when you walk in parades together, you support each other's initiatives, you go to ribbon cuttings, like all that stuff matters. And it makes discussions that much kinder when you're actually talking about tough issues. So I think it's a big role for kindness in government.
I completely agree. And I've had friends that have been in government, and I've thought about it in the past. I'm just not ever I don't think that would be the right time for me. But I look at it as like you're speaking my language. That is so true. Like getting people, we can have differences. We can have differing opinions. That's okay. That's what makes this country great. But there's a way to approach problem solving where if you do it in an empathetic and kind way to one another, that's how problems get solved. Like I look at there are, when I'm on the other side of a transaction as a lawyer, right? Our profession is adversarial in nature. However, I don't approach it that way. And a lot of times it blows people's minds because they want me to, because first, like my name's Rocco. I have a little bit thicker of a stature, so people think I'm going to be a mean guy. But when I come at them in a very kind and empathetic manner, it's amazing how fast I can get things done. And it's amazing the power when you start implementing just these behaviors that were taught as kids in kindergarten. Like things I teach my kids now, using them in business can literally move the needle so much faster. I mean, and in government, like it is, I wish everyone in government thought like you. I feel like we have.
I enjoyed it. My this county council colleagues back in late 17 threw me a surprise baby shower at the end of a meeting.
That's awesome.
Yeah, there can be nice moments in it, certainly. And Jack that's on the Zoom here, we were back at County Council last night. It's like walking into a reunion of friends. So so everyone out there, there is for government to be nice to each other. We certainly try to do the same here with any, our staff is a family, our 1,000 volunteers become part of that family. So.
Yeah. And that's huge. And it's, and you as a leader, and I'll put you on the spot because you're talking and I know you. So as a leader, like do you, and I absolutely would believe you do, you exhibit kind behaviors, but like, what do you think would be if someone had to say like, you're a kind person or a kind leader because of, what would be the 2 traits you think you would exhibit that people would say? Because every leader approaches it differently.
Yeah. Like I get there's a part cheerleader. Probably I was a school mascot in my previous life in high school, so maybe a little bit of a cheerleader for our team. I think it's part of it, and just I guess energy, maybe enthusiasm, general like energy and enthusiasm. I think helps. There's a lot to be happy about in this life. Nothing's perfect, but And
it's interesting that you say enthusiasm, because that was some of the studies I looked at. Like that was one of the traits that got employees to be more creative. They said when they had an enthusiastic boss or manager, it inspired them.
Right.
So it pushed them to be more creative. Because if you look at, and a lot of the studies were done in like the tech industry, right? Very creative, very they industry. But when they had leaders that were, kind of rough, weren't kind, weren't empathetic, they were basic tech companies. I would call them commodity tech companies. The ones that created the major innovations and if you look at the actual leaders, the leaders actually cared. They were the cheerleaders. They were, they pushed their employees because they got the best out of them, but they did it in a kind and empathetic and compassionate way, not by being stern and hard-nosed and demeaning and, providing negativity. There was another study they looked at high-performing teams like Navy SEALs, like some of the highest performing teams in the world. And in the study, they found that high performing teams receive 6 times more positive feedback than normal performing or negative performing teams. So think about that. If you want to create an organization where you have high performing teams, are you giving them positive feedback? Or are you constantly criticizing? That is something I, as a leader, have to look at that as my, every week I ask myself, did I give people positive feedback? Did I tell them what they're doing right? Did I encourage them, or am I constantly critiquing them? Because if you're giving 6 times more positive feedback than negative feedback or just neutral criticism, you're going to create a high performing team. The data supports it 100%. Yeah. Any other industries out there?
There's Annie.
I join you from Seneca Valley School District. I am the development director for the Seneca Valley Foundation. So I run the nonprofit arm of the district, and we actually use kindness in 2 ways. First, to, of course, attract donors. And it's always been, I follow the old adage, you get more bees with honey. So I always try to keep that perspective.
Yes.
And be empathetic and listening. And, that's all part of the strategy of getting, acquiring donors. But we also inspire our students. And so one of my kind bosses, Vic Conrad, is also on the call here. He's on our board of trustees, and he can attest to our kindness challenge that we've done for the past 4 years, I think. So we challenge our students to display kindness through random acts or creative ways. So it helps fill my heart with joy that we're not only exuding kindness in what we do in our projects, but also inspiring kindness into students and educating them on the power of that.
Yeah, and that, like I said, that middle school talk I did, like it's so important because kids, aren't being taught that, and that, I have kids in school, and it's, I try to teach them that. My wife tries to teach them that. They actually, my daughter's English teacher actually played my TED Talk for their class to like really show them the power of it. But you said something that I also want to touch on, listening, right? That is the easiest way to exhibit kind behavior. I mean, people don't, I'm sure you've all heard, there's 2 types of listening. You listen to actually understand, or you listen to respond. Like most people listen to respond. And when you're on the other side of that, you don't feel good about that conversation. But when you're with someone and you actually feel like they're listening to understand and actually care, you come out of that conversation like, wow, that was a very kind, compassionate person. And I remember when I came out of law school, I worked at a big firm, and one of the older lawyers who was kind of one of my first mentors, he told me one of the biggest pieces of advice he gave me is listen more than you speak. And he was telling me in the context of the law, right? You know, if you're deposing a witness, if you're in trial, people like to talk. Just listen, just be silent. They'll tell you the things they shouldn't tell you. They'll tell you all the information you need. But then I kind of just took that throughout life and realized that when I always say when I'm in a conversation with someone, I try and speak 25% of the time and listen 75%. And one, it makes a deeper connection with the person. They come away feeling that kindness that you exhibit, and it really creates a bond at a deeper level. And I think, you know, but when you said the word listen, like that is so important, because there's so much information coming at us every day, right? I mean, we have emails, text messages, social media, there's everything's coming at us so fast. To actually slow down and talk to someone and listen to them, like that is a simple way to exhibit kind behavior. Another way is put your phone away. Like if I'm in a meeting with someone and someone has the phone on the table, I can't take the meeting seriously, because I always look at it as something in their mind is more important than this conversation right now. So I always make a very conscious effort. If I'm meeting with someone, my phone is in my bag or in my pocket, it's off. I'm not distracted at all. I'm giving them my 100% devoted attention, because that makes a person on the other side feel good. It's my way of showing kind behavior. And I love the fact that you're encouraging that in kids, because it's so needed. And it truly, I wish every school district did that. I really do.
Yeah, it's so simple, but it's getting us back to like common natural instincts. And I would also add, another thing I like to do is just compliment someone.
Yes.
We all need more compliments in our life.
Yes.
You feel so good when someone sees a strength you have and they call it. So I always try to do that. I try to, at least.
No, I'm the same way, and I love that. You know, I always like just walking past a stranger, saying, "Oh, I like your shirt," or or smiling at someone, because again, like, why not spread kindness to others? Like, if more people did that, this world would be a totally different place in 5 years from now. But we're so full of negativity, and we're so full of, as human beings, right? We're very egocentric. We're in our own head. We're in our own world. Like, I try, and I'm not perfect by any means, but I try and make a conscious effort when I encounter someone to do something kind, like smile at them, open the door for them, look them in the eye, say something nice. And it's amazing. Like, most people love it. Other people get thrown back by it. Like, oh, like, what do you mean? I'm like, you have a nice shirt. There was no intention behind it. I was just complimenting you. And it's pretty interesting. That's the world we live in these days. Any other industries or businesses that kind of have an example of how you would exhibit kindness in your business, or how you do right now?
I could talk real quick. I'm in banking.
Yeah.
And
okay.
I feel like kind of like what you had said earlier about your profession in the law, and like, I guess the law field is like, naturally you're kind of like competitors with all the other. But when I go, especially with the chamber, you go to an event, there's a lot of bankers. I kind of like going right up to them and meeting them. And just because, being able to expand your network like that, and also just being able to offer their services as a resource for my clients too, adds power. So it's kind of fun.
Yeah, I completely agree with them. I always look at, as a lawyer, like I don't look at other lawyers or law firms as competitors. I was actually asked this question yesterday. We were kind of going through some strategic consulting here in the firm, and the consultant asked, who do you think are your competitors? I mean, we don't have competitors. There's enough pie to go around. We just do things differently. So I always say, we're so different than other firms. I don't have a competitor. I don't look at people that way, because if I can refer something to someone else, why not? Like, I can't do everything. We can't be everything to everyone. Not every client's going to fit with us. So why not make those relationships? As a banker, that's a great way of approaching it, because I know a ton of bankers, and most of them, they're not doing that. So I think you're setting yourself out as a differentiator by being able to make those relationships and say, hey, that my bank may not be the right fit for this client. I'd love to be able to refer them to you, and vice versa. I think if more people did that, again, business would operate a lot differently.
Yeah, you don't want to be that banker with 2 stamps, approve and decline. You kind of want to be able to help, and really you save a bunch of time if you're not the right fit.
Yeah, exactly. And to me, that comes down to being honest with clients too. Like that's another way of, again, other ways of exhibiting kindness in business, I would say, is one, be honest, right? Be transparent, like tell people the truth. Like as lawyers, like we have the worst reputation. Like I know that for a fact. Like they always say lawyer equals liar. And it's like, no, that's not true. We don't all have to be that way. Like I am always very transparent with my clients. If we can't do it, I tell them. If we're not going to do it, I tell them. If we make a mistake, we take accountability for that. And people fear that, being accountable for mistakes. In my 20 years of my career, anytime I've admitted a mistake to a client, no one's ever had an issue with it. I've never had a client lose it over it and say you're fired. They're like, no, I get it. You're human, make mistakes. Like, no problem. You admitted it. Cool, we'll fix it. And that's just being kind, right? Like being kind to myself, one, by being okay with being wrong. And that's another piece that we don't talk about when it comes to kindness, especially as business people and business owners or executives, being kind to ourselves. Like we have to give ourselves some leeway. We're not perfect. We don't have to be perfect all the time. I tell that to my team. Like I don't expect perfection from my team. All I expect from them is excellence and to do their best and just keep getting better. Like 1% a day, get better every day. That's what I expect. We're not perfect. We can make mistakes. We have to be kind to ourselves, allow ourselves to make those mistakes, allow ourselves to have those bad days, allow ourselves to be stressed every once in a while. And life gets a lot easier when you do that. Any other businesses, and I'll kind of have a few points that I like to say, on other ways to, exhibit kindness, and then we can wrap up. I know we're at 40 minutes now. So any other industries or businesses that want to kind of talk about how you exhibit kindness?
I just wanted to say quickly, Andy, I didn't realize I was your boss being on the board of the foundation. So this is, you've been great, Rocco. Everyone else has been good, but I learned something really important this last 40 minutes of it. But in all seriousness, I just want to echo the listening part of it.
Yeah.
I'm a certified financial planner. So my new clients are typically an introduction from a CPA and an attorney, and it's not always a happy situation. It could be, the not to be too sexist, the ex-wife after a divorce trying to put Humpty Dumpty back together again, or a spouse passes away, or sometimes it's the excitement of a business exit, but also the fear of what am I going to do on Monday because I don't have that business to go to anymore. And so the listening, active, empathetic listening.
Yes.
You learn so much more by listening. And you repeated something I heard a long time ago too, Rocco, was listening to learn and understand, not listening to respond, which I'm sure as an attorney, you're trained to, in rhetoric, what's my response? And I'm getting ready with my objection.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
But other than if you're in court, it's like you're listening to be empathetic and understanding for a relationship, not to just quickly respond.
No, I completely agree. And to your point about, with clients, like one thing that we have our weekly staff meetings and, we have monthly marketing meetings, but I tell all of my team and all the attorneys, when we're dealing with a client, because we're a business law firm, so we deal with, they're excited about starting a business or there's some sort of litigation going on. And I always say, in that moment, that is the most important thing going on in that client's life. And we have to make them feel it's the same for us. Like, do not be distracted, be completely engaged in that conversation, be empathetic, because to them, like I may be working on 25 different clients today. But in the moment with client 3, and we're talking about a business divorce that's happening, they need to understand that I'm in it with them. I'm empathetic. I have their back. I can give them peace of mind. And if I'm distracted and not listening, or listening to respond instead of understanding, they're not going to feel that way. Then they're not going to trust me as a lawyer. And I have to make them, and I tell my team that all the time, the most important thing we need to do is give our clients peace of mind. And you give them peace of mind by making sure that they understand we're listening to understand, and we're empathetic and compassionate with their situation. And it's so true.
And I'll conclude with, as an advisor, giving them confidence in their ultimate decision. with facts, data, whatever, devil's advocate, and like anything in life, going into life, playing golf, or just, up in the morning and finding your way to the bathroom. If you do it with confidence, it's a lot different, better experience than doing it with doubt.
Yeah, exactly. And that's a really good way of putting it, because it really is giving, we always say giving clients peace of mind. So, we say you focus on what you do well running your business. Let us take care of the risks. Let us be the risk mitigators. Let us deal with all the things behind the scene, because that's what we're trained to do. And our job is just give you peace of mind that we have your back and it's covered. And that does give them that confidence to run their business, knowing that, hey, if something goes wrong, like there are many clients that I always joke, I said, thank God I have a psychology degree. I end up being their therapist. One of my best clients, like he called me last night to talk about how he should say something to his wife. And I just, it's just kind of the relationship we've established. And I love that, because that means they trust me. That means they understand that I am kind, that I am empathetic, that I do have their best interest in mind. And I think that's how people in business should operate. We've grown exponentially with very little advertising. It's 75 to 80% of our business is referral based. And that's because people just trust us and enjoy working with us, because I make sure I hire kind and empathetic human beings. I can teach them to be a lawyer. I can teach them the skills they need. I can't teach them empathy. I can't teach them to be kind people. I've got to find those people and then turn them into phenomenal lawyers. And that's what we do here as a firm. And it's really, in business, I always encourage, if you're hiring people, like to look for those traits, because it can truly transform an organization. It takes one person, one kind person in an organization can create a ripple effect. It really can, and totally transform a culture.
And not to monopolize the conversation, but with you with a psychology degree, I don't know how many times I say to a client, well, I did have one psychology class in school. And again, it's you with the law, me with money, Tom with the banking. It's sometimes we are the psychologist or the therapist. And I'll joke, I meet that recently divorced woman, again, not to be sexist, it's usually the wife is the dependent spouse. And the first 45 minutes of that first meeting, I'm just sitting there listening, and she's still getting stuff off her chest, and it's being that therapist and being that psychologist. And I think we probably all have that in some way, shape, or form with what we do. Part psychologist, though you formally have the degree. I only had a 3-credit course.
I mean, I have an undergraduate. It doesn't make me a psychologist, but my wife actually has a master's degree in developmental psychology. So I always say she's a therapist, not me.
You don't get away with anything in the house. Then she's got you figured out before you walk in the door.
She's Italian. She's little, and she has this I can't get anything passed on her. But I couldn't do what I do without her. So I truly give my wife all the credit for my career, because she's an amazing mother, takes care of the kids, and truly I couldn't be where I am today without someone like her. So she gets all the credit for it, definitely. So I know we're kind of coming to the end, so I like to kind of give, I use the mnemonic kind as a way to, like, people say, okay, well, how do I go out and do this? Like, what are some of the practical things I can do? And I say, just remember the word kind. There are 4 things I say that you as a business owner or a business person can do to help others and be kind. So kind, knowledge. We all have knowledge. We all have certain expertise. Be willing to share it with people. I was taught from my grandma, like, if you're given special gifts in life, it's your job to share them. So I would say, if you have knowledge in something that someone can use, share it with them. Influence. We all have some level of influence in life, right? We all have the ability to influence others and use that influence to help other people. And network. We all have a network of people. Obviously, this chamber's a network, the groups where we all belong in our networks. If I can invite somebody into that group to help them or introduce them to people within my network, I do that to help them. And the last one is devote your time. Like, that to me is the most important one. When you're willing to give that time to someone, that is the greatest gift you can give a person, because we can't buy it, we can't manufacture it. It's a non-renewable resource. We have very limited amounts of it. And when you're willing to give it to someone with zero expectation of anything in return, that is in my opinion, the best way to exhibit kindness. And that is kind of the 4 things I always say. If you want 4 practical steps: knowledge, share it; influence, use it; network, open it; and time, devote it. You do those 4 things, you will be looked at as a way more kind person. I can promise you that. Does anybody have any questions for me?
I want Matt to give us some play-by-play of the Pirates game.
Point.
That's an afternoon game today, isn't it?
It is,
I
yeah.
think it is. I think it
Yeah.
is.
Yeah, I'm just waiting for them to fall off the, fall by the wayside. I'm just,
It ain't gonna happen. It's 0-0
listen, I
at the
hope
bottom
not.
of the first.
Okay.
I'm a Red Sox fan, so that's why the Fenway background I love. Like I've been a lifelong Red Sox fan, so that when I saw that, I'm like, oh, been there. Beautiful. It's one of the best ballparks in the country.
And to boot, we were there in early April when the Pirates were in town. So
Okay.
we were joking, when's the last time the Pirates swept the Red Sox in Boston?
Listen,
And
I know.
It was like, someone
Oh.
looked it up. The park goes back to 1912. I think someone said it was 1919.
Yeah, it
Since
was
the
a
last
long
time that
ago.
happened.
Trust me, that broke my heart that happened, because they just started off bad. But I mean, Fenway, speaking of how I said, the things in my life have happened from kindness. I got to take my son, who's a Red Sox fan, to the World Series in 2018 from that guy I met, the 3-hour meeting that introduced me to the athletes. He knew I was a Red Sox fan, called me, he said, hey, call me on Sunday. He's like, I got 2 tickets to the game on Tuesday. Do you and your son want them? I'm like, yeah, absolutely. Took my son out of school, got on a flight, went to the bucket list item, sat in the outfield during the World Series for free, got to see them win. Most fantastic game I've ever been to in my life. And that was truly came from a 3-hour meeting with the guy that I was introduced to through a friend that gave me, a year earlier, gave me Red Sox tickets to the World Series.
Well, if that doesn't inspire you to be kind and
Right.
generous, I don't know what does, right?
Exactly.
Fenway,
Right, yes.
Fenway is a shrine. Fenway
Listen,
is a shrine.
it is, and I've been to probably 15 ballparks, and we do a trip every summer, my friends and I. Fenway and Wrigley are my top 2 right now. I mean, in City, I sat up on the Monster, which is amazing. It's such a cool park. Yeah.
All right. Well, I don't think I see anyone from Jazz HR here today with us. So if anybody has any more questions, now is the time. Anything else that you would like to hear from Rocco? If not, I guess we'll conclude about 10 minutes early, so you get 10 more minutes of lunchtime.
Yeah, I'll give you some
Thank
time
you so
back.
much, Rocco. It's always a pleasure to have you come and speak with us. Again, sharing
My
your
pleasure.
knowledge, right?
Yeah,
Your
yeah.
knowledge and your influence throughout
Yeah.
the community. You have a great networking circle around you.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
We appreciate you devoting your time to us today. So
No, this was my pleasure. I really appreciate the opportunity. It was a pleasure speaking to all of you. If you ever have any questions or we can help with anything, just feel free to reach out. I'd be happy to.
Wonderful.
Awesome.
All right. Thank you all. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon. And thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, everybody.
Great job.
Take care.
Thanks for sharing, Rocco.
My pleasure. Take care.